All right, hello. Welcome back to Rambling in a Closet. This is Kyle. A whole, year after the last recording I made. Don't really know why I stopped. Don't really know why I restarted. It's the beginning of a 3-day weekend for me. So I figured I have a lot of extra time. I have no excuses not to go into my closet and talk. I have a pretty good setup right now. I have some tequila to my left. I have a glass of water to my right. The wife, by the way, I am married now. The wife is cooking an eggplant on the stove. It smells like something's burning. I'm assuming everything's okay because the fire alarm has not gone off yet. Knock on wood. Yeah, I don't really know. I was playing some video games this morning while the wife was at work, and I got to thinking about something that was kind of irritating me. But I don't want to only just talk about something that was irritating me, but I think I'll start that way. And I don't really know what got me to thinking about it. I think it was something along the lines of, there was this podcast I was listening to that was talking about how risky it can be to get into a marriage, because 50% of marriages end in divorce. Oh, no, you're basically flipping a coin with the rest of your life. Do you really want to do that, especially as a guy? If you're making a lot of money, then she can take a lot of it in the divorce, yada, yada, yada. It's not a problem for me at the moment because I'm not making a lot of money, but maybe it could be. But obviously, I'm not really concerned about that. Me and the gal, we have an agreement about the divorce thing. It's just not a thing. It's just not a possibility. It doesn't happen. There's no way out. We are trapped together in a forever bond, and we're happy about it. And but it is funny because there's some people out there, including on this podcast, where it's like, yeah, it's kind of risky. It's a 50% chance that you're going to get a divorce, and it's like, well, you make it sound like you can't control it at all. It makes it sound like you can't work away from it. And I don't know. This doesn't seem. It just this. By the way, this number has been floating around ever since I was a kid. You hear about it. The 50% thing. Oh, ever since the 1950s, it's been a 50% chance of divorce. And you go, oh my gosh, it's terrible. You mean half the people who ever get married get divorced? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, wow, that's awful. Why is that? And they go, oh, well, there's reasons. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure there's reasons, but what are the reasons? Anyways, and it kind of fleshes out in your experience. Think about all the friends you had whose parents were divorced. Think about your friends now that we're older enough to have those friends who have gotten a divorce. I know a couple. Two of my good friends. Actually, we had a group of 3 people, me and these 2 other dudes, and both of them got a divorce. So, okay, you go like, wow, that makes sense. And by the way, both were, this is their first time getting married, and they both got a divorce. And you're like, well, I guess that kind of, that makes the math work. If anything, it's worse for that little experiment, but that's anecdotal evidence. For some reason, it's never really quite sat well with me, the whole 50% thing. There's always been something off about it. And then it got me to thinking, is it a lie? I mean, I could just Google it and look at the statistics myself, do a little bit of investigating. But then you're just trusting whatever you see on the interwebs. And I'm sure whatever you want to be confirmed, you can find nowadays on the interwebs. If I wanted to be proved wrong about this 50% number, I'm sure I could find it with enough looking. But believe it or not, if you do Google it, it shows up pretty quickly. And I'm like, so is this like a lie? Because, and I'll come back to this. I'm going to go somewhere else for a minute. Because I know there are some other things that are lies that we're being told in our culture. And it's not by any one person or any one group of people. It's just by the culture. And a really quick example of this is the Baby It's Cold Outside song. I remember when I was a teenager and I was told, oh, yeah, that's a date rape song. He's talking about drugging her and keeping her home when she wants to leave. And I remember thinking, oh, that's terrible. Because I was a teenager. I wanted to be on the opposite side of things. I wanted to be the cool, risque, counterculture kind of, who I think most teenagers do. And so as soon as I was told this about a classic song, I went, oh, that must be true. That must be accurate. And it turns out it's not. You actually listen to the song. It's just a fun little cute romance thing. Yeah, she doesn't want to go home. She wants the guy to kind of pine after her and work for it, and not take no for an answer. Obviously, no can mean no, but sometimes no doesn't mean no, and we all know what that means. There's a playful no, and then there's like a no, buddy, get out of here. and we all know that, and to try to say that that's not real is, well, that's a lie. Unless you've never really experienced that for yourself, in which case, I'm sorry, it can be kind of fun, playing a little dance. And if you actually watch the music video of that old song and you actually listen to the lyrics, it's exactly that. It's a playful little dance of will he, won't he, try to come after me and opine his love for me. I don't even know if I used that word right, but I'm sure I did. And so is that a lie, or is that just a misinterpretation of people who want to be different? I don't know. I tend to think, well, because then I combine it with other anecdotal, albeit, experience. Another which is you have to find yourself before you settle down with someone. You have to know who you are. You have to go out in the world and experience things before you really figure out who it is you want to settle down with. And I used to believe that. I used to think, oh, well, yeah, you got to go out into the world and you got to, live. And you got to learn things, and you got to understand things, and you got to, what's that word? Sow your wild oats. I guess. I don't even know really what that... I'm pretty sure I know what that means, but I don't know if I know what that means. You got to go do that before you settle down, because, once you settle down, you'll look back and you'll regret all the things you didn't do. And here I am now, realizing how much BS that is. I got to say, the galvanized relationship would be so much, I don't want to say so much better because it's pretty awesome. We would have, how about this? We would have different problems that might be easier to overcome if we had met earlier and gotten married earlier and hadn't solidified our personalities more. Because what I've noticed is that the older you get without someone tweaking you a little bit, or someone, giving you some constructive criticism, you become more solidified. You pour concrete over your personality more and more, and as you grow older, the concrete hardens, and you become more static, hard to change. Your routines are built in, your habits are built in. I mean, think about it. If you have a bad habit and you do it over 10 years, it's a lot harder to break than a habit that you just newly formed. And you get this little message from people, and they're like, yeah, if you got to go out and find yourself and be who you are. And by the time you found yourself, you're like 30 years old, 40 years old, and it's a lot harder to navigate and negotiate and change your personality. I mean, the gal and I are pretty much the same age. She's a little older than I am, but we're pretty much the same age, and we're running into that problem sometimes. By the way, all relationships have problems. It's not even a complaint, really. It's more of just an observation. Hold on. I'm editing my microphone. It's kind of broken. And, I wouldn't change this relationship for the world, but I know that it would have been different and maybe better in some ways, and maybe worse in some ways, but maybe better, if we had met earlier and had more time to grow together. Because this whole go find yourself thing, it is a lie. It's got to be, okay, maybe it's not a lie that when someone is telling you this, they're not lying to you, because I think they believe it, as I did. But it's a cultural lie. If you imagine the culture as a being or an entity, well, the culture must know better, because things have come before it. If it's an entity, right? I know this is kind of a weird analogy, but go along with me on this one. It's a cultural lie. It knows better. It knows that if you meet up earlier, you have a higher chance of success in your relationship. Now, I could Google it and see if that's accurate, but I don't want to do that. I want to speak philosophically in this closet. I don't want to have to pull up Google things. And because then you start arguing about whose facts are right and whose opinions are opinions and whose facts are not and stuff. And then it just gets annoying. Because I think you can get to a logical answer without even touching anything on Google. You can just think and you can go, yeah, that feels pretty accurate. And we can both, not to get too inappropriate right off the bat, but there's this lie, cultural lie, that is being told out there that says that, you need to sleep with a lot of people so you know what you like. Because if you just marry the first person, or if you just sleep with the first person you're married to, what if they turn out to not be what you're interested in, in the bedroom? Well, first of all, my first objection to that is how would you know? You'd have nothing to compare it to. How could you possibly know what you like and don't like if that's the only experience you've ever had, A, unless you're watching a lot of stuff on the internet. Ugh. And it's the same kind of lie. It's like, go out there and like experience life with other people before you get married and settle down. It's like, wait, does that logically hold through? Does that actually have a philosophical grounding in it? Because the more I hear it and the more I see the people who say it and the more I see, like when I meet someone who's in their like middle ages and they say that kind of stuff and I look at them as a person and where they are in their life, I go, yeah, how'd that work out for you, buddy? And hey, whatever, man. You do you. Don't hurt me. Don't take my stuff. You do whatever you want as long as I can do whatever I want and I don't care. But seriously, though, if we're talking about this kind of stuff, we can be honest with each other. And, I don't know. I think if you had settled down a little earlier, would have been a lot better for you. And you would have had a lot less mileage on you, so to speak, in all the different areas. Like, do you really have to try all the drugs in the world before you realize what drug is for you? Like, does that make sense? No. Do you really have to watch all of the movies in the world to realize what movies you like? No. Like, I know I'm scrolling down Netflix, and there's this, like, budget film made by some dude in his garage about Pinewood Derby racing. And I'm like, yeah, I used to be a Boy Scout, but I would not find this interesting in the slightest. I know that. I don't need to watch it to find out. I don't know if this analogy makes sense. Let's just back up a little bit. You know where I'm going with this. Let's go back to the cultural lie. You need to find yourself. Yeah, so as a married man, I can tell you that is complete BS. You can't. I need her to find myself, whatever that means. I don't even think that's real. I think that's also a lie, finding yourself. What does that even mean? Go find yourself. What if we stopped just caring about that sort of thing? What if we stopped worrying about ourselves? I gotta find myself. I gotta make sure I am who I am. I gotta know who I am, man. It's like, what does that even mean, dude? You're a human being, okay? Like, what else do you need to know? You're a human being named Bob. Like, do you need to know anything else? Like, go get a job and go work it. Go get married, have kids, and die. Like that. Do what everybody else has done. Do what all the 110 billion people that have ever existed on this world. Do what all of them have done up until now, and then do it slightly better. Why not just do that? Why are you worried about who you are? What I really think that's another cultural lie. Is that there is a you that should be explored and found and appreciated and have pride over. It's like, no, man, like your life isn't about you. And I think that's kind of religious. I think that's why there's a lot of people who don't like it, because it's kind of a secular thought to think that your life is about you, and it's more of a religious idea to think that your life isn't about you. Because what I've realized, and I always kind of figured this was the case, not always, recently, in the past 5, 6, 7 years, I always thought this was kind of the case. But it wasn't until getting married when I finally realized, oh, my life isn't about me. Like, I can't be happy. I can't have meaning if it's just me. This whole idea that you have to go and travel the world and sleep with 1,000 people and eat all the foods and listen to all the music and drink all the wine before you can really figure out who you are. It's like, no, I think that's wrong. I think that's a lie. Well, Kyle, before you get off any farther on this rant, do you have any evidence? I don't want to talk about evidence. I'm just going to talk about what feels right, what's logically sound, what has a nice base in philosophical thinking. And I think that's another part of this cultural mess that we definitely are all in, is that we don't really know who, this is kind of funny considering what I just said, but we don't really know who we are, let alone who we are as individuals. We don't know who we, the human race, is. I don't know the proper grammar on that one. We don't even know what we're doing here. And you hear people, well, it just depends on who you are, man. It's all, different strokes for different folks. It's like, yeah, really though? I don't think so. Because if it was just different strokes for different folks, I don't think we'd get this far. I don't think the 110 billion aforementioned or before-mentioned people would have gotten this far if it was just, yeah, man, do whatever you want to do. Like, if it was do whatever you want to do, would there have been farmers who, like, toiled miserably for decades, day after day, hour after hour, in the heat and the cold? Can you imagine, like, a farmer back in the 1200s, and there's this guy that's just walking around and be like, bro, you got to go find yourself, man. You got to do what you want to do. Different strokes for different folks. And that farmer's like, yeah, that's a great idea. No. The guy went, the farmer was like, whatever, man. I got to go get this grain plowed. I don't know. You know what I mean? The farming techniques back then. You know, they were plowing, right? Just with a ox cart. Yikes. Yeah, I don't. I think this is all a bunch of hooey. I'm gonna kind of try to tie all this in together. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just keep ranting and just thinking about what I think is a cultural lie. I think the culture is massively misleading us. Oh, maybe that's a better way of putting it. Maybe it's not a lie. It's massively misleading. Massively. Maybe it's accidental. Maybe it's purposeful. I don't know. But let's not try to put fault on any one thing or person or group or culture. Let's just say it's massively misleading to tell people that they should do whatever they want to do. Whatever makes you happy, man. Go find yourself. Don't get married yet. You have a 50% chance of divorce. By the way, where I was going with that in the first place, another lie. No, you do not have a 50% chance of getting divorced. That number, as it turns out, is wrong. The real number. Now, if you take all of the marriages that have ever happened in the records, right, that we can keep a record for, yes, 50% of them has ended. But people do get married multiple times. And the people who get a divorce on their first marriage have like an 75% chance is something crazy. Some crazy number of getting divorced again if they remarry within a certain period of time. Like, I guess if you wait long enough and get remarried, it's like totally solid. But if you do it too quickly, there's a high percentage chance you're going to get divorced again. So if you really look at the numbers and you break it down on only first marriages, what you realize, or what you see in the numbers, is that something closer to less than 30% of first-time marriages in the Western world, less than 30% of marriages in the Western world of first-time marriages end in divorce. 30%. If you take the entire world into the number, it's like less than 20%. It's like 17 to 22% of all first-time marriages end in divorce. And you go, oh, that makes a lot more sense. Because all the people who keep getting divorces are like first, second, third, fourth time married. And they're muddying up all the numbers. They're making it look bad. They're giving marriage, they're giving love a bad name. Ah, it's funny. I'm going to have another drink. It's a strawberry limoncello margarita. I highly recommend it. Fresh strawberries. You don't want to add, see, when you're making a good margarita, you don't want too much sugar. Too many people just put sour mix in with their tequila, add a little triple sec, and it's like, it gives you a hangover the next day if you have too much of it. But mine, tequila, fresh squeezed lime juice, maybe a little bit of sweetened lime juice for the sugar, just to kind of rough around or smooth out the edges so it's not too sour. And then orange liqueur. And then I add limoncello and, in this case, fresh muddled strawberries. So there's still, some sugar in there, but it's significantly less than a sweet and sour mix, and it's fantastic. I can drink quite a bit of these and feel totally fine the next day with only a mild hangover. It's not even a hangover. It's just I feel tired, But there's no, headache or anything. It's really quite great. I love tequila. Anyways, I digress. So the marriages thing, lie. That's a lie. 50% of marriages don't end in divorce. If you look at it in the way of total marriages, yes. But if you try to say, if you're getting married for the first time, no, you do not have a 50% chance of getting divorced. And by the way, you don't really have a 20% chance of getting a divorce either. Of course. Okay, another way of looking at this, this is always a fun little experiment to do with your friends, because you always are going to find at least two people who argue with you on this. Flip a coin. What's the chances of it landing on heads or tails? 50%, right? Okay, now flip the coin a second time. Let's say it lands on heads. Now flip a coin the second time. Now, what are the chances that it's going to land on heads? Again. Well, if you phrase it like that, you might go, oh, well, it landed on it last time, so it's less likely. Well, actually, no, it's 50% chance. Again. And you can keep flipping the coin over and over and over again, and every time you flip that coin, it's 50% chance. Now, if you say, what are the chances of a coin being flipped 10 times in a row, all landing on heads, well, then you get a different number. You get 50, 25, 13, like 2% chance. Something like that. I don't know. I'm guessing. You get a much smaller percentage when you add it all up in aggregate, but when you just do one at a time, it's 50-50. Now, why did I bring that example up? Well, I don't really know. It made sense. Oh, I know why. So, if you get married the first time and you look at the stats and it's a 20% chance, well, that's just based on all of the numbers. And I think it goes in the opposite way of this coin flipping thing. If I were to look at my numbers with the gal and I, and it was like, what are the chances of you getting divorced? And me personally, I'd be like, 0. And like, oh, Kyle, come on. You can't ever say 0. It's like, yeah, no, I can. I just did. And divorce is not an option. We made a solemn promise. I promised. I can at least say, from my end, right? Obviously, I can't speak through the mouth of my wife, but from my end, there's a 0% chance of getting a divorce. Oh, Kyle, what if something terrible happens? You know what? Why do you want to think about that, first of all? And second of all, by something terrible, what? You mean infidelity? You know why infidelity happens most of the time? It's because both parties are not pulling. Now, don't get me wrong. 3% of the population are sociopaths, right? Narcissistic sociopaths who can be borderline evil. Now, if you happen to marry one, okay, you're justified in divorce, right? And you got screwed. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, they just like bringing hell onto earth. Okay, I get it. That's 3% of the population. The other 97% of the population, for the most part, you have to be doing a very bad job on your end for them to want to see other people. Now, I know that can sound a little mean, but it works both ways. They're doing something terribly wrong to you, and they are not justified in what they're doing, but it's not just their fault. You have to look at yourself and go, I wonder, what have I done this entire relationship to get my other to want to go and do something wrong in this way? What have I done? Or what haven't I done? Why do I bring that up? Well, you kind of do have a chance at controlling your marriage. Not controlling the other person, but controlling your marriage. You have a chance at working together and figuring things out. And if you do all of these things in a proper way, in the proper fashion, your chances of divorce probably go down to darn near close to 0. Barring anything terrible from happening. Of course, you can't predict the future. But it's all, let's just say 5%. That's down from 50. The original number we started with that's what we're all told, 50%. And then you're being told, maybe, if you do everything right and if you actually try and care and put effort forth. I know I say this as a newly married man. Oh, Kyle, what can you possibly know? You don't know how hard life is. Yeah, no. Kinda, maybe, all right? But I'm not an idiot. I have a brain. I can think. I can empathize. I can surmise. I can theorize. I get it. I can see how a marriage can get bad. I get it. I've seen some bad ones. Seen some good ones, too. And I've heard some good stories. I've watched some good information on the interwebs. You know, people I trust. Like, I understand. I can get it. I can use my rational faculties. I don't have to go through an entire life to understand things, you know? This is another cultural lie. Is like, oh, you can never really understand someone until you walk a mile in their shoes. It's like, no. I don't agree. I don't agree. Not to the full, like, okay. Today is June 6th, by the way. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with history. But about 70, 80 years ago. Oh, wow. Holy crap. Exactly 80 years ago. Was it 80 years ago? Wow. Wow. 80 years ago, the beaches of Normandy were stormed by Allied forces. And if you were to say, Kyle, from based on what you're saying, you mean you totally understand what it's like to storm the beaches of Normandy? And I can go, no, but I've seen Saving Private Ryan, and it looks pretty freaking awful. It looks terrible. And I don't know what it's like to lose buddies and to get shot at and to be swimming around in red seawater because of all the dead people, but I can surmise that that's pretty awful and that I don't want to live through it. I don't want to experience it. Can I empathize at 100%? No, but I can become pretty close. And that's not to take anything away from the soldiers who were on the beaches of Normandy. That's not to say that, their experience wasn't that bad. I can kind of understand what it's like. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that it's not like I can't completely understand what's going on. I have an idea. Okay, I can empathize a little bit. That's why we still remember this day 80 years later, is because we all, despite not being there, we can all go, wow, that must have really sucked. That must have been terrible. 80 years later, we're still talking about it. Because we can understand how brutal and terrible it was, and we went and saw Saving Private Ryan. And by the way, it's not just me saying this, but the actual D-Day veterans were like, yeah, Saving Private Ryan was pretty legit, bro. That was pretty real. So no, this whole, you got to be in someone's shoes to understand their situation. Not quite. I disagree. I believe in the power of empathy. And if you practice your empathetic bones, I think you can get pretty good at it. And I don't know, I get rushes of empathy sometimes. I am not like this big, woe is the homeless. I tend to think that it tends to be your fault if you're homeless, barring some extreme circumstances, but it's like, man, I don't know, you must have made some bad choices, okay? And maybe you weren't taught properly, I get it. But usually your life and where you are is your fault and your responsibility. Hey, I'm not a millionaire right now, and I think that there are a couple routes I could have taken at some point to have been changing that. I know I could have more money now than I do. Is that my fault? Yeah, it is. So yeah, I'm not a big woe is the homeless person, but I remember one day I had this rush of pure empathetic compassion for this individual. There was this 60-year-old lady just slumped against a fence on the side of a road, clearly homeless, clearly drugged out of her mind. And I just was flooded. I almost could see her entire life and how she got there, and I was just torn down. I was so sad for her. It wasn't pity. I don't believe in pitying people, but it was just sadness. It was like, damn, like you deserve better. That you got the rough end of things. You got shafted. You got thrown aside by this society. You got screwed. And that sucks. And now you're on the side of the road dying of drug addiction, and no one cares about you. Is that your fault? Yeah, you might have had something to do with it, but damn, like you got screwed. And, I'm definitely more aware that people are getting screwed. And you can't look at me and tell me, well, you can't really understand what it's like to live someone else's life unless you've walked a mile in their shoes. It's like, no, I can, actually. I can have an idea. And when I saw that poor little homeless woman, I got a really massive idea. I got it. I get it. And that's not to take away. I feel like there's this, whenever you're, okay, so to digress, whenever you're telling someone, and I know this is true because it happens to me, like you're telling someone, oh man, I just had this happen to me and it really sucks. And they go, yeah, I know how you feel. And you go, what? You get irritated. Like, no, you don't. We all do it, right? You're trying to tell someone, you're just trying to complain, right? Or trying to vent or tell someone something terrible or good. And they go, oh yeah, I know how that's like. And you go, what? No, you don't. And, they might very well know exactly what's that like, but for some reason you just get a little irritated, We all get that. I think we all experience that. And I think that comes from someplace. I don't know I'm sure I could kind of think about it for a minute, but I want to keep going to somewhere else. Like, I get it. Like, you don't want to acknowledge that maybe other people can feel the way you feel, but We're all human beings. I know we all have different fingerprints, but it doesn't mean that there's like an infinite amount of interpretations of reality that we're all going through, and we can't possibly understand. That's you know what? Ooh, that's one of the biggest cultural lies, I think, is that you can't understand what someone else's life is like. It's like, well, what you're saying is that I can't empathize with anybody. It means I can't actually relate to anybody. I can't talk to anybody about anything because apparently I don't understand what their life is like, and I can't possibly use my brain up here to figure it out. It's just different strokes for different folks. It's just opinions, I guess. There's no way to actually connect with someone because I can't possibly understand what they feel like. It's like, yeah, I think I can. Just because you can't, whoever's telling me this, just because you can't doesn't mean I can't. I fancy myself as a pretty good empath, and I don't like that word. I don't like the way it's used now, as if it's like some person with magical abilities. But if you're using it in just the kind of basic way, like you're able to understand and feel other people's emotions, yeah, I'm not too bad at that. And I think I'm over-calibrated sometimes, like in not a good way, not a complimentary way or anything. I'm pretty confident I can feel other people's emotions with relative accuracy. I mean, people tell me I'm a pretty good people person, and I don't think you can be a good people person unless you can understand what the people are feeling. And you know, that gets me to thinking. That lie, that cultural misleading statement, that misleading statement that comes down from our culture, that you don't know what it's like to be a bad man behind blue eyes. You don't know what's going on. What does that do? Well, it separates us. It draws us apart. What do the other lies do that I mentioned? What is the lie that says that you have to go experience life before you marry someone, before you settle down? What does that lie do? Well, it makes you harder to be a good partner, so that your relationship is bound to be more filled with struggle and maybe end in the end of the union of the relationship. It pulls us apart. It stops us from being close. Yeah, go out there and just put 500,000 miles on your car. And then okay, well, this is my car. Well, it's not going to last that much longer, I guess, unless you take good care of it, I guess. Yeah, you can still make it last a long time, but you got to put a lot more work into it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? These lies. What does the 50% divorce rate lie do? Well, it makes you a little more skeptical about getting married. Hey, maybe I shouldn't get married. Maybe I should just be perpetually single and just date people until it's not fun anymore. And then I'll be a happy person. It's like, no, you're going to not be happy at all. You're going to be lonely and miserable. Unless you're someone like Bill Maher. I don't know if you guys know who this guy is, but he's like, yeah, I'm happy. And Chelsea Handler, I'm happy because I can do drugs and I'm not married. If you're so happy, why are you telling me how happy you are? I mean, I don't go around telling people, oh my God, I'm so happy. I don't do that. And if they ask, if prompted, maybe, but I don't just get on the social media and go, look at how happy I am. Can't you see? I don't do that. Yeah. I think these are all lies designed to get us to separate, to fall away from each other, to become lonely and desperate and sad and lonely. I know I already said lonely twice, but whatever. Don't you think so? Do you see what I'm saying? Am I just completely off base here? Or am I making some sense? I feel like there's this massive force out there that just wants you to be miserable. It's the same force. I've talked about this before on previous episodes of Rambling. I've talked about this. You got to accept yourself. You got to love yourself. You got to, just do what you want to do, man. Whatever you want to do it. Be happy. Anybody else who tells you otherwise, they're just judgmental. They're just judging you. They're anti-you. They're you-ophobic. They don't like you. They're against you because they're telling you a different way of being than who you are. What the hell? There's this massive force out there that just wants you to suck and be miserable. And then, when you're miserable, you go, why am I so miserable? Everybody is telling me to do these things. I'm doing them, and now I'm just terribly sad, and now I'm doing drugs. that I'm hiding in my basement all day and not going outside. I don't have a job. I don't need a job because everything's paid for now, but I'm still miserable. I was listening to a podcast, and I really quite respect the podcaster that I was listening to, but they did some math wrong, and they were like, look, we can solve poverty by just paying everybody $200,000 a year. And I'm like, no. A lot of people define themselves as their job. Like, if you were to ask me, Kyle, who are you? I'd say, well, I'm a guy. I'm a husband. My name's Kyle. American. I work in the restaurant industry. Like, those are the first few things that are coming out of my mouth. And work is up there. Well, if you take away work and you just give me money and say, okay, well, go be free now. Go create things. I might not do that. Because why? I'm set up. I got my money. I got $200,000 a year. That's great. I don't need to do anything. I feel like I just degrade into depression and sadness and just waste away. I'd smoke a lot of pot, drink a lot of whiskey. Oh, in this case, tequila. Play a lot of video games, watch a lot of movies. I'd go travel a lot with the wife, I'm sure. I'm sure we'd have fun for a little bit, but at some point it would probably become really terrible. I don't know. Would that give me more freedom to do this podcast more often? Is that something I should be doing? Or do you find this interesting at all? I don't know. I can still do it despite having a job. I'm doing it right now. I'm way past my normal half an hour mark, and I have a job. So it's just an excuse why I don't come in here and do this more often. It's not because I have a job. I quite frankly, my job is quite nice. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, if only we didn't have to work. If only we didn't have to work, we'd be so happy. I think that there's another cultural lie. I'm not saying you have to like slave away the rest of your life. It would be nice to do something that I found complete joy in, and then to make enough money from that thing that I didn't have to worry about finances. Like, that would be great. But I do enjoy restaurant work. Now, if you're like a assembly line worker, and you're like, God, my job sucks. Well, hey man, maybe retrain. I don't know. I don't want to get into that part right now. That's beside the point. I don't know. I just feel like there's this massive force out there that's like telling you it wants you to be happy, but really it wants you to be miserable and sad and lonely. And why do I think that? Because I'm looking at all the messaging from everywhere. Like, another example of this, okay, you can't always trust these man on the street interview bits. I understand that they're going after like a certain kind of people, and they're only showing you a certain kind of people. But there is something striking. Now, if you go to some of these modern Western countries like the UK, Canada, America, and you go around and you start asking the women, you're like, hey, do women need men? Do women need men? And a large number of the gals go, no. Women don't need men. It's a very feminist talking point. Women need men like a fish needs a bicycle. And you go, are you sure about that? Because I know if you ask most men, if you asked me, and I know if you asked most men that I know, that I've met, you go, do men need women? We go, yeah, absolutely. Like 100%. Like, don't get me wrong, we'd have a lot of fun with no gals. We'd shoot things and play video games and drink beer and create stuff. I'm sure we'd be fine, but like, to what end? Like, I feel like life would be pretty darn boring after a while if it weren't for the gals. If it weren't for my wife, I don't know what I'd do. I wouldn't have any purpose. And I don't feel any shame in saying that. I don't feel bad in saying that I rely on someone else to find meaning in life. There's this cultural malaise that you're supposed to like, oh, you can't be happy by yourself. It's like, no, I can't actually. I can't be happy by myself. I can't find meaning or purpose by... You know what, though? Actually, let me rephrase that. I could be happy by myself. I've done it before. I lived 5 years by myself, on and off. I had some girlfriends. 5 years by myself in a trailer, and I was happy most of the time. But I didn't have any meaning. I didn't have any purpose. I felt shallow. And it was mostly hedonistic happiness. It wasn't true joy. that I was feeling in that trailer. It was just hedonistic happiness. I could drink and do whatever I want. But look, did you hear that? I'm drinking right now. And my life is infinitely better than it was in the trailer because I have a beautiful, wonderful woman that I get to go to bed with every night and call my wife and wake up with in the morning and live my life with. And you, not you, obviously, you are wonderful. Thank you so much for listening. But them, they, the culture, they're trying to tell us that we don't need. First of all, you're trying to tell women that they don't need men. Who goes to war? Who cleans out the sewer system? Who builds the buildings? Who does all the dangerous jobs? Well, the men do. So, yeah, you need men. Suck it up, buttercup. It's not an insult to women to go, yeah, we need men. And by the way, don't get me wrong. I've heard plenty of these women on the street, bits where the girl's like, yeah, we need men. Absolutely. And I'm like, oh, that's nice to hear. Thank you. But there are almost more, I think two times more women who are like, nah, we don't. And they'll say it right in front of their boyfriend or husband. It's like, no, we don't need men. And the boyfriend's like, what the fuck? Like, are you, okay. Obviously insulted because I feel like men have no problem with acknowledging our need for women. And there's this lie that is being told to women. It's like, you don't need no man. You can be independent. You can go work your own career. You don't need to have a kid. You don't need a man. You can make your own money. It's like, what the fuck? Why? First of all, look at all the jobs that women inhabit, that women have the, 90% majority in. Nurses, teachers, daycare workers, hospice workers. Any job that involves, taking care of people, mostly women. Shocking, right? I know. Veterinarians? I don't know about that one, actually. That might be closer to a 50-50 split on that one, because in my experience, I don't know. If you're taking care of someone, that job is mostly done by women. Because women are significantly better at taking care of people than men are. It's just true. There are some guys, my best friend is a nurse, and I'm sure he's great at it. I know he is, because he keeps ranking up, I guess. He's doing really well for himself. And he's really good at taking care of people, and he really cares about people. Good for him. But he is in the minority. And men mostly do things with things. We mostly build things and fix things and build, They even did a little test with monkeys. I can't remember what the study was called, but they did a test with monkeys, with girl and boy monkeys, and they put a toy truck and a doll, and the girl monkey went straight for the doll 10 times out of 10, and the boy monkey went straight to the toy truck 10 times out of 10. It's yeah, that's just how it is. Chicks dig other people, and men dig things, and we complete each other. Who knew? Wow, who knew? Those freaking people who are creating all these cultural messages that are telling you that you don't need each other, they're lying to us. And it's so frustrating because these lies are destroying, this country, but they're destroying you and me. They're destroying our bonds with other people. They are stopping us from becoming, better, more unified, more human. They're just taking away all the good things. They're making it so we can't have any. This is why we can't have good things. Because we believe all of these lies that we're being told. Because it's in all the movies, all the TV shows, it's in all the music. You got to be independent. You got to find yourself. You got to believe in yourself. You got to do all this crap. And I don't think it's any accurate. I don't think it's true. I don't think my life's about me. You know what I think? I think my life is about my service towards my fellow man and my wife and my family and my community and my country. It's about not making the world a worse place than it was when I got here. It's about leaving the world or ending the day having made it a better day for at least plus one person. And that's the great thing about being married, is you can accomplish that every day if you want to. There's always one more person whose life you can make better besides yourself. And that's your wife and or husband. And then if you want to really up your game, you can do it to your coworkers too. That's why I like doing my job. Is because not only do I get to help make my wife's day better, but I get to help make my customers' days better, and my coworkers' days better, and my manager's day better. I get to make I have the opportunity to make so many people's day better. Is that proper plurality? I think so. And it's great. I find so much happiness and joy and meaning in that. When I come home, just recently, just a few months ago, I was working like 80-hour weeks. It was nuts. But I would get home and I would feel like good. I wouldn't feel drained. At the end of the week, before my day off, I would feel drained. But those first few days, I'm like, wow, this feels great. This is awesome. Because I'm not falling into all these lies that we're told all the time, that your life is about yourself. Just be happy. Just believe in yourself to do what you want to do. Different strokes for different. No, it's not true. It can't be true. It can't be true. Why? Do you want me to show you some kind of weird evidence? Like some CNN or Fox article that says, oh, it actually is true. It doesn't exist. This is philosophical, man. This is logical. Your life can't just be about you. Because then nothing ever... If a grain of... no, I can't think of a... Yes, I can. If I think hard enough, I'm sure I can get there. I'm going to take another drink of tequila. Your life can't just be about you. Because if it was, you're expecting, like, okay, unless you live in the middle of a forest and you provide your own food and you clean up after yourself and you provide your own water and you don't rely on a single other person, like you don't rely on the post office guy, you don't rely off the garbage truck guy, you don't rely off the farmers and the water purifier people, and the electric company. You don't rely on the people who built your house and or apartment. If you don't rely on any of these people, okay, yeah, maybe you can get to the point where your life's just about you. But quite frankly, that sounds pretty miserable. Don't get me wrong. I know every man, 85% of men watch Castaway and they go, yeah, that wouldn't be so bad. Like, if I had a fire and, like, an axe and, like, a good solid amount of coconuts and, like, an island with enough food on it to supply me the rest of my life, like, I think I could be okay. Like, we all know it, right, guys? Am I right? Like, we watch Castaway and we go, that could be kind of fun. But at the same time, we also know that it would only be fun for so long. You'd be like 5 years on the island. You go, all right, I guess I want to go home now. I want to be with other people. I want to see my wife. I want to be with my coworkers. I want to go drink with my buds at the bar, play pool. Your life can't just be about you. It just can't. It doesn't hold any water. It's not philosophically sound. Quite frankly, it's quite selfish. And I'm the kind of person who thinks that selfishness is like a virtue, but like this is the kind of selfishness that's not. Because it's not, right? It's not actual, like pure selfishness. True, logical, like hard logic selfishness is giving to other people because in the net, it comes back to you. If you want to live your best life and you want all of the privileges that this society can give you, you need to give yourself. But if we're talking about the hedonistic, illogical selfishness, yeah, this whole, everything about this cultural hedonism is just terrible. And it destroys people. It destroys your soul. It makes you only think about yourself. And by the way, I don't know where I heard this. I can't exactly explain it. I'm going to try to, I guess. But, like, depression, anxiety, the neurons that are firing off in your brain or not when you are in a state of depression and or anxiety are like the same when you just keep thinking about yourself. If you're just thinking about yourself and how miserable and sad or happy you are and what's wrong with you, you can do it for 5 minutes. That's fine. You're checking in on yourself. That's fine. All right, whatever. I guess 5 minutes is okay. But if you do that for an hour, if you do that for a week straight, if you do that all year, you're going to be miserable. How do I know this? Well, I've done it. And yeah, I can say it was pretty bad. I know people who do it. They're always thinking about themselves. It's like, dude, stop. Like, relax. Go and touch grass. Go and work at a homeless shelter for 5 minutes. Like, go and give yourself to someone or something. And I think you'll find that your life gets a lot better. That's what I've found. And it seems to hold some logic. It seems to hold some, it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? 50% of marriages don't end in divorce. Total, yeah, maybe, but yours doesn't have to. Mine does not, for sure, have a 50% chance of divorce. I can tell you that. Because it's not about me. I'm almost done with my drink, so I guess I should wrap up here soon. And I'll wrap up kind of just by asking you a question, I guess. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm off? Do you think anything I've said has been totally insensitive and just completely incorrect? Because I don't know. I think I'm standing on a nice little philosophical mountaintop right here. Not that I came up with all this. I didn't figure it all out. I'm listening to other people. I'm going off of other people's thoughts. 110 billion people have come before me, and I'm listening to them. I'm not listening to the people who are alive right now, who are like hedonism, selfishness, happiness, pleasure, selfishness. I'm not listening to that. I'm listening to all the other wisdom that has come before me, and I'm going, yeah, maybe they know what they're talking about. And whatever, you want to, if that's a compliment to myself, then great. I'll take it. But I think I'm an idiot. This is the thing, right? I know that I'm an idiot. I know that I don't know everything, so I'm going to listen to everyone that came before. The reason why I keep citing this 110 billion people number is they had to succeed to get us to where we are now. So they must know something. In aggregate, the total amount of knowledge ever accumulated by mankind, there must be something to it. So I'm going to listen to that. I'm not going to listen to all the voices that are coming out of my computer and my TV nowadays that are telling me to just go find myself. I think it's a lie. I don't know. Tell me what you think. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to go and finish my drink. I'm going to go cook some ribeyes. I've been letting my ribeyes soak in this really wonderful marinade for the past 2 days. I think you're not supposed to let it marinate that long, but whatever. We'll see what happens. I'm going to go finish my tequila and have some more. We're going to go watch a movie, the gal and I. We're going to go eat some ribeyes and some asparagus. And we're going to have a good night. And I hope you do, too. This is Kyle signing off. I'm going to get out of my closet, rambling in a closet podcast. Have a good one.